Hi, I'm Ben Ferguson, and welcome to your Amac Weekly News. First up, Dr. Fauci is in hot water after horrifying secrets have been revealed about research that he's been funding. After you find out what he's been funding, the real question is going to be is, how can Americans still trust him? We'll deal with that in just a moment. Up next, Joe Biden continues to spiral out of control, at least his administration, as inflation has exploded and his approval rating has plummeted. So what does this mean for his future? We'll deal with that in just a moment. And finally, AMAC Action Senior Vice President Andy Mangione is here to talk about a major election that's taking place in Virginia that could have ramifications nationwide. All of that and more in just a second. But first, a quick reminder, please get in the game, get in the fight, and help us reach more people by hitting the share button right now as you're watching this video. Your AMAC Weekly News starts right now. I want to start today off by asking you a couple of simple questions. Number one, would you trust your children or grandchildren in the hands of any individual who decided to fund a program where insects were purposely used to eat puppies while they are alive? For research, of course. I bet I know the answer to that one. I've got another question for you as well. Would you trust a doctor who funded even partially an experiment involving insects eating beagle puppies while they're alive? Would you trust any official, any doctor, any teacher, administrator, or frankly anyone who funded, assisted, or even encouraged an experiment like this to take place? I know I wouldn't, and I absolutely wouldn't trust someone like that with a vaccine for myself or my children. Yet here we are. This is exactly what Dr. Fauci has done, and it's all been exposed. This man was part of a division of the National Institute of Health that spent more than $424,000 on cruel experiments which involved drugging puppies, removing their vocal cords in order to allow hungry, disease-ridden flies to eat them while they were alive. They claim the vocal cords were removed, quote, to reduce noise, which is not only stressful to the animals, but can also reach decibel levels that exceed OSHA allowable limits for people and can lead to hearing loss. Yes, they're now using OSHA as the reason why they ripped the vocal cords out of dogs that were being eaten while alive by insects. Think about that. Now, the man that you're supposed to trust with your COVID-19 vaccines and all things to do with your national health can't even take proper care of animals. Many would call this animal cruelty. In fact, some have said that it's beyond that and it should be criminal. Just ask PETA. In fact, Fauci and his department went out of their way to apparently torture animals for seemingly no purpose whatsoever. At the same time, the Biden administration refuses to hold Fauci accountable and continues to push the vaccines on Americans, including children. According to them, when you refuse, you are killing the men and women around you, so you should be forced into submission. CDC Director Walensky said this about all Americans who choose to make their own decisions about their health this past week.
We have seen that these mandates are getting more and more people vaccinated. Here's what we know. The most disruptive thing that you can do to a workforce is to have a COVID outbreak in that workforce. That will most definitely not only send people home, but it will send people to the hospital, and some may pass. What we know from the police workforce is that there have been more deaths from the coronavirus over the last year and a half than all other causes of death for that workforce combined. So we believe it is very important to get these people vaccinated. There is a plan, should these people not want to be vaccinated, towards education and counseling to get people the information they need so that they are feeling comfortable in getting vaccinated.
Man, this sounds a lot like World War II and some things people were saying in different parts of the world if you think about what you were just told. Let me be clear. So now your choice to not get a vaccine means that you need education and counseling. How do we get to this point is a question everyone should be asking. A country founded on freedom is now under the control of people who can't even take care of animals, much less humans. Think about what's happening in this country. We are supposed to submit now our children and our grandchildren to vaccine mandates from a government that assures us they're totally safe. And the same people that are selling you on this are the same ones that are willing to rip the vocal cords out of baby puppies, claiming it's OSHA's fault, and then do testing on them while they're alive. Do you really want to trust those people with your kids and grandkids with vaccines? I think it's time for us to start asking more questions, and I think it's time for us to start standing up for our rights, even though they don't believe we have any. So if you're looking for a last-minute Halloween outfit, you might want to go as the maskless Joe Biden. Yeah, you can do that now, apparently, if you're Joe Biden. And if Joe Biden wasn't out of control before, he certainly is now. Not only is maskless Joe Biden's approval rating from both sides of the aisle plummeting, but the left doesn't even seem to know what to do about it. Just this week, not only did Joe Biden not wear his mask, or he forgot to wear his mask, he also did this. Yeah, there you go. There's your President of the United States of America, the guy who's telling you that you can go to jail if you don't wear a mask on an airplane and lose your right to fly forever. The same guy that says you must be vaccinated because his patience is growing thin, doesn't have a mask on, and then decides to cough in his hand. Don't worry, he wasn't done there. Now remember, you're supposed to live your life in a bubble after injecting yourself with the safe vaccine that he has demanded you take. And he can't even remember basic protocols of even just decency. Now, that includes not coughing on your hand, Uncle Joe, by the way, and then shaking someone else's hand without a mask on right after you demand the country actually live their lives in a completely different fashion. Fox News' Tucker Carlson had this to say about Biden's latest, moment. Take a look.
Consider the tape we played a few days ago of Biden sauntering maskless through a crowded restaurant in Washington. There he was on film, his gaping maw completely uncovered, spewing hot corona breath, panting like an obscene phone caller on innocent passersby. Diners were trapped in Biden's path. They had no choice but to inhale clouds of Joe Biden's personal aerosol mist. Would you like some Biden saliva with your entree tonight? No thanks? Well, you're getting a heaping dollop anyway. Sorry. It was repulsive. And in a global pandemic like this one, it was also recklessly dangerous. Typhoid Mary was never this brazen. But it gets worse, ladies and gentlemen, and it gets even more stomach-turning. Watch, if you dare, this video. It was shot yesterday at an event that Biden did for the King of New Jersey, finance goon Phil Murphy. Ask yourself as you watch it, why hasn't the CDC taken this man into custody? Here it is.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Did you see that? Did you see what just happened? That was a crime caught on film.
While his sense of decency involving the health of himself and those around him has hit rock bottom, he is also losing the support of countless Americans as inflation skyrockets. Even CNN had to admit how bad things have become in this country when it deals with economic issues like inflation. Yes, this is a real CNN headline from this past week that actually reads, quote, "Why Biden is flailing. Americans are tired of being overrun by mandates. That's why it's happening. New tax introductions and the sudden inflation spike right before the holidays. That's why it's happening." In fact, a newly released CBS News poll showed that 60% of voters think that Biden is not doing enough to stop the issue of inflation. Both his economic and overall approval ratings are in the low 40s. Some polls even have him in the upper 30s, as opposed to his summer numbers, which were in the low 50s. In other words, he is dropping like a rock in popularity with Americans. Now, Republicans, the good news is, leads in 85 battleground congressional districts. And we have a big election about to take place in Virginia, where Biden won and beat Donald Trump by 10 points. This is a referendum on the Biden administration, and it's time for us to get involved in our local elections, get ready for the midterms, and hopefully have a big win in Virginia. There is a big election coming up in Virginia for governor, and Democrats are freaking out right now because Joe Biden won that state by 10 percentage points less than a year ago. So how are they losing a state all of a sudden with a candidate that everyone's supposed to love and Terry McAuliffe? It might be because he actually said that parents should have no say-so in what their kids are being taught in the public schools. In other words, parents, you should shut up and let the government parent your children in the classroom. Well, joining me this week to talk about this important election and what it means for the rest of the country is Andy Mangione. He is the Senior Vice President of Amac Action. And Andy, I appreciate you coming on. This is a massive race. It is a race that is so important for the midterm elections, kind of a preview of what could happen here. And Amac members are actually getting involved in this race, which is the best part. As poll watchers, talk about that a little bit.
Happy to, Ben. We have been involved in states across the country throughout the year with regard to election integrity. But as you mentioned, Virginia has a huge election forthcoming on November 2nd. Our members have been telling us and asking us passionately throughout the year, how can we get involved? Well, a couple of months ago, AMAC members sold out poll watching election working training in Richmond, Virginia, in anticipation of this election. And now, as the date grows closer to November 2nd in Virginia, the need for poll watchers increases. So we put out another call to action in Virginia, and over 740 of our members have visited a website to sign up to be poll watchers. Our members in Virginia and throughout the country, for that matter, Ben, are heavily engaged, heavily motivated to watch this election in Virginia. And hopefully this translates into high engagement as we enter the 2022 midterms.
You know, it's shocking, the poll numbers I mentioned at the top about the fact that Joe Biden won in that state by 10 points. This was supposed to be a hardcore Democratic tyranny, socialist kind of state where the people shut up and we run everything. And we are seeing this backfire because of one simple comment that was echoed over and over again, double down, triple down, that has really come back to haunt Terry McAuliffe. Now, for people that don't know, this is a guy that's the former chairman of the Democratic National Committee. I mean, this guy is all-encompassing of the Democratic Party as its former leader. He was supposed to be walking into this office, and when he told parents you should have no say-so in your child's education or public schools in Virginia, that is when the wheels really came off of his campaign.
Ben, you know, that's coupled by the fact that Glenn Youngkin is running a near perfect campaign. He pounced on what Terry McAuliffe said, rightfully so. He's getting tremendous mileage from it, and McAuliffe cannot escape what he said.
You know, you look at the poll watching aspect of this. Obviously, there are a lot of conservatives that are very concerned about how the elections are going to be run in Virginia, and they should be paying attention. When you look at how many AMAC members have just responded to this call to action to get involved, I think this tells us a lot about what we're going to see nationwide in the midterms. It's not just going to be people voting anymore. It's going to be people getting involved in the process and how the vote is taken and how the vote's done on Election Day.
Exactly right, Ben. We need AMAC members watching the polls. We need AMAC members working the polls, and we need AMAC members counting the votes. If there's anything that we've learned working with conservative groups with regard to election integrity ever since the end of the 2020 election, is that people need to get involved in the process. We need people working the polls. We also need people who are looking for work to work as election administrators. So the call goes out, and AMAC Action is a true grassroots organization. We're able to put feet on the street in these election polling places, and we're actually able to get people involved in the process. And this is, I mean, it shouldn't surprise people within AMAC and our membership, because they're telling us throughout the year that they want to get involved. They are passionately looking for something to do here, Ben. And it's almost as if they're thirsting to get involved, because the response that we've been seeing, the open rates and the click-through rates on these emails that we've been sending out, these blasts that we've been sending out, are extremely good. And it's almost unprecedented, the response that we've been getting when we're asking people to get involved.
Yeah, people want to be involved now, and they realize what's happening so quickly in less than 1 year of the Biden regime and how they're taking away their freedoms, and now people are really willing to get engaged, and that's good news. I want to talk about another piece of good news, and it's actually something shockingly bipartisan that Amac has been involved with, and it deals with Medicare. Tell people about this exciting, I would call it a victory for at least bipartisanship in a very broken Washington, D.C.
Absolutely, Ben. We've recently supported a bill. It's called the Seniors Timely Access to Care Act. And what this bill does is deal with the prior authorization process. Now, the prior authorization process is the pre-approval process. It was designed to help control costs, but many times it delays care. So what this bill does is modernize the process. It makes the process electronic. It establishes national standards for documentation, but perhaps one of the most appealing aspects of this legislation is that it increases transparency between Medicare Advantage plans. It increases transparency between the plans, the patients, and the physicians. So what this does, the bottom line with this bill, is that it will speed care for seniors who use Medicare Advantage. So it gets them the care they need in a timely manner. And having something finally bipartisan happen in Washington, D.C. right now, I don't know if it's a rapture alert or finally people are realizing that they're supposed to be working for the American people. But at least on this one, it looks like we're moving in the right direction. Andy, I appreciate you coming on today, obviously ending with some good news that there are still some souls in D.C. that are willing to work together for seniors in this country, and Amac is leading the way on that. Thanks so much for all the work you and your team are doing. My pleasure, Ben. Thank you.
Quick reminder, if you have not joined Amac and or renewed your Amac membership, now is the time to do it. You just heard about the great work that they're doing with Amac Action, and that's part of your membership. You also get our incredible magazine, which will keep you up to date on what's going on in your state, not just nationwide. Most importantly, Amac is representing now more than 2 million members and fighting each and every day, not just on Capitol Hill, but in the states that you live in. So make sure you join or renew your membership and tell your family and friends about it. I'm Ben Ferguson, and I'll see you back next week for our next episode.